Hi, and David, thanks for the introduction plus the organizing this meeting and having such esteemed speakers, and I'm just a general cardiac surgeon here. Essentially, I'm just presenting a couple of cases that I've had to deal with following having a standard aortic type A dissection, as was discussed earlier, as a normal general surgeon would do, and who survived at a young age and ended up with bigger problems. So, sorry. So essentially, this is the first patient, and you can, afterwards, we can discuss if there's anything that you could have done differently. But he was 52, he came in 2006, and he ended up having a type A dissection. The drawings are my own, so just bear with them. So essentially, he came back 2 years later with a leak just below the left subclavian, and the endovascular guys and the radiology guys decided that they couldn't put a stent in because it wouldn't fit there. So I had to take him back to theater with a thoracotomy. But I did something subtly different. I put an interposition graft, but at the same time I connected, anticipating that we'd have a problem, I connected a side port onto the subclavian within the chest, which was easy enough to do, and it sat very easily in the thoracic cavity. Also, what I did was inverted the graft as a section in there, thinking that if I have to pull it through later to do the arch, I should be able to do it. And so I left it like that, stitched it in. And I thought I'd done a very clever thing, and fingers crossed, it all worked well. And I sat on him for 3 years because I couldn't convince myself that or brave enough that this is an absolutely fit guy. What should I do leave him alone, and I left him. But ultimately, he was getting dilatation, so we took him back to theater. And the vascular guys ended up doing a carotid-to-carotid graft for him. And I went back to theater and just had to pull up the inside of that lumen, and it came out beautifully. There was not a single atheroma or a thrombus on this graft, and it was just one anastomosis. And then I connected the carotid separately with the graft. So I thought it was a great success. He's ended up with now having his whole aorta stented, and everything is good with him. So we ended up with a good result for him. So I thought it was worth presenting him. So that's what he looks like presently. So this is a second lady we've just finished about 2 weeks ago, and she's still waiting for the endovascular part of it to be done. So she had a stent, type A dissection, similarly repaired by me going back a few years ago. That was, say, about 6-7 years ago, and she had at that stage had a Bentle's procedure with an extended arm over it to allow for aortic perfusion to rewarm, which I normally do. And ultimately came back with a dilated arch and descending aorta. So my vascular surgeon said they want to put in a stent, but they didn't have any landing ground and wanted it to debranch her. So we did this 2 weeks ago, and this was what her latest picture was. But what we did was we actually sat down, and the best part of this for our perspective, which I think was having the team sitting down and actually discussing this procedure. So we actually got most of them in together, and there was a lot of talk whether we should do anything for her or do something. And finally we said, yes, we've got to do something. So we got everybody together, and we sat down and worked all the steps of the procedure from stage one. Don't forget, I am a general cardiac surgeon, not a specialist, but this was on my table. And we sat down and discussed each step of the procedure, and we finally did the procedure on the 15th. So we did the stenotomy. We connected a trifurcation graft into the innominate, and then, which is the point here, and you'll see then, and the left carotid with the side ports, and went on bypass from the cannula above and 2-stage venous cannulation. Once we'd done that, I normally cool to 26 degrees for every case. Once I have to do it, I don't go 24, 26s for these cases. So we cross-clamped, the aorta was opened, we did the proximal anastomosis. Once we completed that, we took the clamp off, did the distal anastomosis, connected the side port from the previous surgery to the side port on the trifurcation graft, and got the perfusion going. And once we'd finished, we couldn't get that third branch across to the left subclavian, and so we said, leave it alone. And this is what we've ended up doing for her. She was, woken up 2 hours after surgery, and everything's gone well for her. And that's what it looks like now. So she's just waiting for the stent to be put in. So I thought I'd bring them to the floor. And if there's anything that people would add or subtract, so be it. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Any questions, comments, or thoughts? Vasu.
So I think it's quite a good way of dealing with it. All I wanted to suggest was you probably did a good thing by leaving the subclavian alone, because she's got a complicated dissection which is obviously going all the way down. And if you have to do any other option lower down in the thoracoabdominal axis, you still need access through your left subclavian. So if you had connected up this graft to the left subclavian and disconnected it, you would have taken out a lot of the options for later on. If you have left subclavian access, then it means that you have access to the thoracoabdominal aorta from the top. And it opens up a lot of avenues, particularly if you have to put a branch graft in for the celiac and the renals. You can't do it from below, you have to come from the top. So if you take out that access, then it just totally takes out that option.
So what you're trying to say that in future we should keep that in mind rather than connect it in the first instance?
Correct, yep.
Thank you.